Good morning, Happy Valley, and welcome back to another edition of the Penn State 365 podcast. As always, I'm your host, Richie O'Leary, and joined by my co-host, Dylan Callan Crowley. Dylan, the NFL draft has come and gone. We've seen 1, 2, 3, 4, I think it was 10. No, 9? 8. 8. Geez, I can't count today. 8 picks in the NFL draft, 2 in the first round. Before even going into player by player, what are your just kind of overall thoughts on where these guys landed and kind of,
it wasn't the 10 that we were expecting Penn State to have coming into the weekend. But when you have as many late round picks as they were projected to have, that's going to happen. It's hard to project those late round guys. We'll go on and talk about some of those guys that did get drafted, didn't get drafted, but still 8 guys drafted. That's a really strong showing for Penn State in the NFL draft. They continue to be one of the programs in the country that continues to produce not just 1, 2, 3, 4 NFL guys per year, but they're producing 5, 6 plus guys year in and year out now over the last couple of years, over really most of the James Franklin tenure, but it's been really strong over the last 5, 6 years especially. So I thought it was an overall really good draft for Penn State. Did have a couple guys go undrafted, a couple surprises, but overall, I think if you're Penn State, if you're James Franklin, you have to be happy. You had 2 guys go in the first round. You had 2 more guys go on day 2. And then day 3, probably a little bit slower than a lot of us expected, but still a quality day 3 with 4 more selections.
Day 1, like you just mentioned, 2 guys, Fashanu and Chop Robinson. They both land. Well, I should say, Chop Robinson landed with the Miami Dolphins. Fashanu with the New York Jets. Yep. I just want to get your overall thoughts on those because I don't think Fashanu is even going to start year 1. Maybe not year 2.
Yeah, no. Olu got in a really good spot in terms of he has tremendous upside. I mean, he was arguably a top 5 talent in this draft. And he can play right away. But if you look at that Jets team, that's a Jets team that has a pair of really solidified tackles, if I remember correctly, especially on the left side there, where it's really just a matter of those 2 have not been able to stay healthy over the last few years. And with Olu now, that's a place where he can take time to develop. His run blocking still needs to develop. He's obviously a great pass blocker already, but the run blocking has to continue to develop. He'll have time to develop that run blocking. He may not need to start in year 1, and I think that's okay. But at the same time, track record says the Jets are probably going to suffer an injury at left or right tackle, and Olu would then have the opportunity to step in and get some playing time there. But I don't think it is a lock that he necessarily starts week 1. Would I be shocked? Maybe a little bit. I'm blanking on their left tackle's name.
Smith.
Yeah. Tyron Smith is one of the greatest to ever do it in the last 20, 30 years at the position. There is no unseating him in that starting spot right now, unless he gets injured. But maybe over at right tackle as well, they can get him some reps there. But probably won't start year 1 necessarily, but I think it's still a really good landing spot. He gets to learn under one of the best to ever do it in Tyron Smith, and that should only help him going forward.
Yeah, Tyron Smith, future Hall of Famer, without a doubt. Now, the interesting thing is that Tyron Smith hasn't played a full season or healthy season since 2015, so regardless of starting or not, I think Fashanu is definitely going to get some snaps at least.
He's going to get a couple starts for sure. But you mentioned it. 2020 he played just 2 games, suffered an early season-ending injury. 2021 played 11 games. 2022 he played in just 4, and then last year he played in 13. So I mean he's at least going to miss probably 3 games, but could miss upwards of half the season plus. But for the Jets, if they do lose Smith for that length of time, they're going to have a pretty good backup there in Olu. And Tyron Smith, as he continues, I'm not sure what they signed him contract-wise.
He's actually Tyron, you mean?
Yeah.
Tyron's actually a 1 year, $2 million deal. That's it.
All right.
Fashanu next year.
Yeah, exactly. So there. You get get Olu to develop under Tyron for a year. Even if
Mm-hmm.
Tyron gets hurt, Olu can, still sit down in those film room meetings and still study how to become a better offensive tackle behind Tyron Smith. And then next year he could take over there at left tackle.
Yeah, no, I mean he's a really good. I mean, he's got a really good situation. Hall of Famer in front of him. 1 year left on his contract. It makes a ton of sense, and not to mention their line coach, Keith Carter's a pretty damn good offensive line coach. So, I think he's going to develop really nicely there, and he's actually a Pennsylvania native too. So, Downingtown. But yeah, I think that's a really good fit there. The other first rounder was Chop Robinson, Miami Dolphins. Also, probably not going to start, but situational at least, I would say.
Yeah, I think early on in his career, year one, maybe year two, we're looking at a pass rushing specialist for Chop Robinson. He still needs to develop, obviously, more of a skill set as a pass rusher, but that'll come in time. But yeah, Chop. Well, I guess it depends. When is Jalen Phillips expected to return? Didn't he go down with an injury at the end of last year?
I believe you're right, but I think he's going to be good to go.
He suffered an Achilles injury 5 months ago at this time, so that puts him at
he should be fine.
10 months around beginning of the season. Either way, he'll be a situational pass rusher probably with the Dolphins his first year, but could easily develop into much more there. It's a really good fit, I think, in terms of what that coaching staff has done with their defense, with their pass rushers. And he gets to learn under two pretty damn good pass rushers there in Jalen Phillips, but also Bradley Chubb on the other side. They also got Shaquille Barrett as well. So that is a really nice spot for Chop Robinson. And he also gets to play again alongside of another sorry, never mind, wrong Cam Smith. But yeah, overall, really good landing spot.
Yeah, no, of course. Third round, or no, second round? When was Isaac or Adisa? Adisa was third, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, third round. Jeez, I'm losing it now.
Well,
2 third-round picks. Adisa Isaac and Caden Wallace. Caden Wallace, kind of a little early. Kind of a little intriguing there.
Yeah, there was some discussion, I would say, on Twitter amongst the true NFL insiders that he could sneak into the second round. So I wasn't necessarily surprised to see him drafted in the third round. But, I mean, a top 70 pick is pretty high compared to where we thought Wallace was going to be, even coming into the last season. But, you look at his stats. He only allowed 2 sacks over the last 2 years. He had that really rough 2021. Since then, has been one of the better offensive tackles in the entire Big Ten. Has come a long way in his development. That's a credit to Phil Trautwein and the rest of the offensive coaching staff. And I think it's a good landing spot there with the Patriots. They in front of him is Mike Onowenu on the depth chart.
Mike's their right tackle.
Right tackle?
Believe. Yeah, okay. Mike's the right tackle. The left tackle was Vidarian Lowe, who started 8 of 11 games last year. I also don't think Vidarian Lowe's that good. But, I think Caden might be able to start right away, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think there is upside for Caden Wallace to start right away for the Patriots next season. I think he's going to develop into a pretty strong, NFL tackle. I think he's. Will he be a Pro Bowler? Who knows? But I think at the very least, he's going to be a serviceable starting tackle in the NFL for quite a while.
Yeah, and I think it's crazy if if you think about it, 3-4 years ago we were talking about Caden Wallace kind of stinks.
Yeah.
Like get rid of him.
And the expectation is that he will switch from right tackle to left tackle with the Patriots as well.
Wallace, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I figured that. That's huge, man. But again, this is a guy that 3 years ago we were like, holy shit, again, an awesome team. Now it's like, oh my god, he's a 3rd round pick, a potential left tackle for the Patriots. Like, what a big switch up there. But the other one that's a 3rd round pick that was actually I think you actually said he was the perfect fit, if I quoted that correctly. Adisa Isaac to the Baltimore Ravens, joining fellow Penn State alum Odafe Owe. I said that wrong. Yeah, I did say it wrong. But You said perfect fit. What makes you think that?
Yeah. So let me bring that article up. Actually, because it's been a couple days since I wrote it. And it's been busy the
No,
last
you're
few
good.
days. Yeah, Adisa is a perfect fit in Baltimore for a couple of reasons. One, I think that's a roster in Baltimore that's going to give time for Adisa to continue to develop. They have Odafe Owe, as we mentioned, but they
Mhm.
also, on the other side, have um, guys like Kyle Van Noy. They have
Mhm.
David Ojabo there, uh,
Yep.
and there's another one, but oh well. But they have Kyle Van Noy, Owe, and Ojabo now.
Mhm.
They're in front, who they all think could develop or have already been, in the case of Van Noy and Owe, have been very good edge rushers. And Ojabo, they have very high hopes on. Suffered, I
Mhm.
think, a season-ending injury last year. Should
Yeah.
return this year. So there's three guys there already that they have faith in to get to the quarterback. And Adisa now can come into that group, play right away, but also continue to develop. The Ravens usually have those guys more of your stand up edge rushers. At Penn State, Adisa did
Mhm.
some of that, but most of the time his hand was in the dirt. So now that he's going to be able to develop into a stand up edge rusher, I think that's going to help him as a pass rusher. But he's also going to have to continue to develop his move set as an edge rusher. Uh, uh, Deja vu for Baltimore as well.
Yeah.
Kind of drafted a similar player a couple years ago in Odafe Owe, somebody who needed more development in their game but had very high upside. Now, Adisa Isaac has much more production at the collegiate level than Owe had,
Mhm.
but and Owe has more athleticism. But overall, they're very similar players. They've been able to do it successfully in the past. This is a Baltimore franchise that in our lifetime, Richie, has always developed their defensive players into top-notch players at their position. It seems like every year.
Mhm.
So I think just when you look at that track record for Baltimore, I think that's great for Adisa. He plays the Raven style, tenacious, high football IQ, big hitter, of course. But he fits the Raven style. And then Chuck Smith is one of the best pass rushing coaches in all of football. I mean, in his career, he's developed names like Aaron Donald, Carlos Dunlap, Albert
Yeah.
Hainsworth, Robert Mathis, Calais Campbell, Max Crosby, Justin Houston, Chandler Jones, Cameron Jordan, George Karloftis, and then
Mhm.
Odafe Owe, while also helping Jadeveon Clowney put together one of the best seasons of his career last year when not many people expected it. So I think Adisa being able to work with Chuck Smith is going to be huge for his development going forward. And I think it just raises Adisa Isaac's ceiling even more from where it was coming in the draft. So, I think it's an overall perfect fit just because of the roster that's already there
Mhm.
and the Ravens' experience in developing players like him. And then, the Chuck Smith one is a big one, especially.
Yeah. The next one, I can't rave about enough because I was talking to my fellow Giants fans, and Theo Johnson is just a huge pickup for the Giants.
Yeah,
He's an actual tight end for a change. He's not just an oversized wide receiver.
correct.
Gets open. I know he didn't have a ton of production this past season, or even I guess maybe throughout his entire career. He had some production, not a ton though. And you could blame that on your sit. You could blame that on whoever. He had his moments though, where he
Yeah,
looked really good.
yeah, and you could also you could blame part of that too on that Penn State for the last 3-4 years has always had a stacked tight end room,
That
uh,
too.
and when he was given chances, he was very good. Um, that being said, yeah, I mean you could probably speak a little bit more to the Giants depth chart there at tight end. Obviously, they
Hmm.
got Darren Waller, who I
Who
imagine if
knows
he
what
stays
happens?
healthy will be the starter. And but do you believe, since you're a Giants fan, do you think Theo could push Daniel Bellinger for that second spot this year, or do you think?
Well, yeah, I think they actually drafted Theo for the sole fact that Waller sounds like he's probably going to retire.
Okay,
It's on and off. Well, one week we hear he's retiring, next week we hear he's back. Then he's
sure,
retiring. Then his wife files for divorce and makes a very
yeah,
public thing about it. So I think he personally retires. It seems like he's had a hell of an offseason. I think that's why
sure,
the Giants went tight end. It makes a lot of sense. Now that being said, I follow all the Giants like beat writers that talk to him a lot.
Right.
A couple of the guys like locally next to me, they're telling me, they're like, yo, they had like some people had him as like a second round draft grade. And I'm like,
Right.
yeah, he's very good tight end. He's a typical old school, and I should say old school, but he's built like a normal tight end, and he's super athletic, super freaky, great route tree. He might not be the speediest guy at tight end in the world, but he can get open, and that's really all you can ask from your guys at that position. And he's got really good leverage on blocking too. I think Theo is going to be actually a perfect fit for the league.
Yeah,
and this is he's one of those guys where I think he's going to outproduce what he did in college. I think in the league he'll just sort of maybe not the top tight end in the league, but I think he could be a damn good tight end.
Yeah, I think he could be a top half of the league tight end. And I think
depending on how
and
define top, I guess
top 15 top half of the league, top 15 tight end. Depends who's throwing him the quarterback. I mean, depends who's throwing him the ball any given week, but. I think Theo is going to outperform his draft spot for sure as well. Just this is a guy that I think people will look at in a couple of years and wonder how he fell to the fourth round. I think this is a tight end who can, record, 600 yards at least a season, get a couple touchdowns. I think he's going to be a really nice fit for the Giants. I think he's going to have a really strong NFL career as well. The size and athleticism will translate. I get the biggest thing for him will just be if he can improve his run blocking. But at the worst case, you have a receiver first tight end there.
Yeah. The last three were Hunter Norzad in 5th round, Daquan Hardy in the 6th round, and Kalen King in the 7th round. Out of those three, who would you say is kind of going to be, or is going to outplay their draft grade?
That's a good one. Because I do think Hunter Norzad is going to have a lengthy NFL career because of his versatility between center and guard.
Yeah.
For Kansas City, I mean, they just drafted a really good center a couple years ago in Creed Humphrey. So Humphrey's not going anywhere. And then they got Trey Smith at right guard, a former 6th round pick. Norzad, I think, is going to be in line to be a backup here for the first couple of years, but I think he's going to develop into a solid player overall. Daquan Hardy was always going to be the guy that I said was the steal of Penn State guys. Maybe undersized, yes, but he just performed at a high level when he was asked to throughout his career at Penn State. He had a poor performance against Ole Miss in the Peach Bowl, but that was when Penn State had no Kalen King and had no Johnny Dixon.
Sorry,
they didn't have their top 2 corners in that game, and Daquan Hardy was pretty much kind of on an island as the veteran corner of that game. Got picked on quite a bit, but outside that game, he was pretty damn good last year. And then you had what he could do on the special teams, and I think Daquan Hardy is going to outperform that spot as well. Not going to have to be on the field a ton as a rookie. He can continue to develop his game, but I think he's going to find a spot on the 52-man roster or 53-man roster for the Bills. And if not, he will most definitely find a practice squad role somewhere. And then Kalen King, I wouldn't be shocked if he sticks around the NFL for a while, because I still think there is that cornerback in there somewhere that was that, round 1, round 2 draft pick a year ago. I don't think he has the same ceiling, but I do think part of that player is still there, and that part of that player could potentially return in the future. But he's going to have a big camp as a 7th round draft pick, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I'm actually intrigued to see what he can do. I think Kalen King might end up being a really big steal for the Packers.
I would not be surprised.
Yeah, they got Jeff Halfley running the show now on the defense there, defensive backs guy himself. They have Jair Alexander, who's an all-pro corner that can kind of help him and teach him a little bit. I wouldn't be shocked if he's like a 10-year nickel guy, to be honest. I think not putting him on the number 1 receiver is definitely going to make a difference. I think that definitely hurt him a little bit this year, going against top competition. I mean, no one can guard Marvin Harrison for starters, but I feel like he had some really bad plays against Marvin Harrison too.
Yeah.
And not just him, he just had a bad season. But you saw the year before when Joey Porter was out there too, next to him or on the other side of the field, shutting down half the field. If you can get a corner like a Jair Alexander to shut down half the field, you might be okay on that other side or even in that nickel spot. So I know there was some talk about moving him to safety where kind of lack of speed would not hurt him as much.
Yeah.
And that's possible, but I think a slot corner would be probably the best thing for him. I think that could really really make him like a multi-year veteran in this league.
Yeah, I think it's just going to come down to how well that athleticism overall just translates to the NFL level, and if he's going to have the athleticism to stick in the league. But I like I said, I still think the skill set, there are plenty of positives there. It's going to take time.
Yeah. Couple undrafted free agents. I don't know if Johnny Dixon never signed, right? Actually,
yeah. So
he's one.
Let's start there.
That's just wild to me. I feel like.
Yeah. So Johnny Dixon, we know got banged up Senior Bowl week, didn't get to go to the combine, didn't get to do the pro day, but this is still a cornerback that with Penn State was very productive throughout his entire career. Even at South Carolina, I think for his entire collegiate career, he gave up 4 touchdowns.
Yeah.
He put together a really good collegiate career. I know there's questions about the athleticism, but I'm baffled that nobody has signed him to a UDFA deal, I guess because they don't think he will be healthy for minicamp here next month.
That's fair.
But I'm just baffled that he's not. Nobody has signed him to anything yet. Maybe I'm sure he'll get something before training camp, but it's just baffled that there's just been no talk at all regarding him.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a fact of him not wanting to do a rookie minicamp invite and wanting an undrafted free agent contract, which there's a little bit of a difference. Obviously, you get a contract at the end of the day with one of them. But it's making, and this kind of goes into another subject I want to talk about, it's making him sitting out the bowl game look really dumb. Or he was injured, right?
No, he was healthy for the bowl game.
No, he was. Yeah, he sat out. Yeah,
and he got injured. He got injured in the Senior Bowl practices.
Yes, that's what it was. I don't understand sitting out the bowl game, man. What's the you know how bad this makes you look now? Like between him and Kalen King sitting out, and then you go 7th round and not even signed. It's a rough look. Now, mind you, some other guys did it, and it didn't really hurt them or benefit them. It is what it is. Maybe it doesn't play a factor, but it's definitely something to keep an eye on in the future. Because are you just going to keep sitting out bowl games now, or you're going to realize they kind of mean a little bit?
Right, I agree. We'll see what happens. Like I said, I know there's questions about his athleticism as well, translating to the next level, but the production was pretty damn good against some of the best football talent in the country in the SEC and Big Ten. So,
yeah, well, we'll see what happens if he gets a shot or not. Some other guys signed too: Curtis Jacobs, Trey Potts. I feel like I'm missing someone. Keaton Ellis.
So Ellis got a camp invite, I think, with the Titans. Potts got a invite as well, and then Curtis Jacobs signed with the Chiefs. I wouldn't be shocked if Curtis Jacobs makes an NFL roster this fall. I was surprised he went undrafted. I thought, again, production, athleticism questions, yes, but we mentioned it coming in. This is a guy who was productive throughout the last few years for Penn State. Intelligent linebacker. I just feel like he's gonna find a spot. There's always a couple of these guys every year that fall through the cracks, get undrafted, and then go on to be really damn good players in the NFL as rookies and beyond. So I think Curtis Jacobs could fit that mold this upcoming year for sure.
Yeah. Moving on a little bit to next year's draft, we already saw some mock. Well, I shouldn't say mock drafts. I think it was just odds on where guys are going to get drafted. But someone did post a mock draft as well. But Drew Allar tied for 5th in odds for the number 1 overall pick. It's kind of ironic considering others were saying he's not draftable.
Yeah, and I mean, like we said coming on, it's one of those things with Drew. Like there is a high, variability of where he could go if he does enter the
Mm-hmm.
draft next year. He could be the number one overall pick. He could be, a fifth round pick. But either way, Drew is a quarterback that, as long as he doesn't tear his ACL, throws, has a terrible season in terms of stats, touchdowns, interceptions, completion percentage, is going to be draftable next year. It's just a matter of where he's going to go. And I think it's likely going to be somewhere between the first and third round. And if he puts up any sort of numbers similar to last year, I think it's going to be the first round. I think it's quite. The odds back up what we were saying. Now, you could look at these odds from last year, and there'd be guys that who didn't get drafted probably amongst those top 17 from last year. But I still think at the end of the day, Drew is one of the more pure, talented quarterbacks in the country. Quarterbacks are always going to go high in the draft. I'm not surprised that he is on that list.
I mean, look at the other quarterbacks in this next year's draft. It's kind of not a shit draft, but it's not good either.
And that's the thing. Like now, I do think Shedeur Sanders is a very talented quarterback.
Probably number one, if I had to guess.
Yeah, he's a very talented quarterback for sure, and I think he has a chance to be the number one overall pick as well. But outside of Shedeur Sanders, I don't know if you can sit and tell me that without a doubt Carson Beck is a better quarterback prospect than Drew. Quinn Ewers,
maybe. It's a weird one, though.
It's a weird one. I'm not even – and now Arch is obviously pretty good, but Quinn may not even be the best quarterback on his own team.
True.
I would so I'm looking at, for the sake of this, NFLDraftBuzz.com, who has a quarterback ranking. They right now have Drew 8th on this ranking, but in terms of projecting to the NFL level, I think of the guys ahead of him, I think Drew is a better NFL quarterback than Riley Leonard. I think he would be a better NFL quarterback than Jackson Dart. Cam Ward is interesting. I'll be interested to see what Cam Ward does this year. But Cam Ward kind of has that Michael Penix and Bo Nix type thing where he's going to be a 25-year-old rookie quarterback next year. And then Drew is a much better NFL quarterback than Jalen Milroe. So, I mean, at worst, I think going into next season, Drew legitimately should be a top 5 quarterback in this draft. I think he should be ahead of the guys like Leonard, Dart, and Ward right now. But I think with a strong season, he's only going to climb this board. But, yeah, as you said, overall, not a great quarterback board for next year in general. You got some sleepers like a Tyler Van Dyke, a DJU, Kyle McCord, Will Howard, but not many guys there that scream potential franchise quarterbacks, in my opinion.
I would argue right now, just looking at this top 10 list, Drew Allar is probably third.
Yeah,
I'd say Shedeur, Cam Ward, like you said, I think has a unique ability to. He's got crazy arm talent, to be honest, and he can move too. I'm intrigued to see how he works at Wazoo. See how that one works out. He's slower than I thought, actually, though. But no, I think after that, I think Drew Allar's. I even think Drew could be above Cam Ward, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think it's Shedeur, and that's really the only top guy. The rest are I don't think we don't know what Carson Beck is really. Quinn Ewers is okay. He's not great. He's got high upside. Don't get me wrong. I mean, 4 or 5 star. Milroe, I don't see him as much of a star-studded quarterback in the league. Dart is okay. I think Dart's going to have a good year for the sole fact they have a good run game.
Yep.
Riley Leonard is just another Duke. He's Daniel Jones 2.0. Dylan Gabriel, injury history. Michael Penix X. And then Connor Weigman, I'm going to be honest, I don't know shit about him, to be honest. But
you look at the other thing, you look at these top quarterbacks, and I think this is what's going to help Drew next year. Mm-hmm. When you look at them, which one has the prototypical NFL size? It's Drew. Carson is up there, and I will admit Carson's stats were a little bit better than last year, but I think when you look at the size, you look at the arm strength, the arm talent. Drew is probably the one who fits the NFL mold the best. Now, it is it is becoming a league where you need to at least be a little bit mobile, which would help a guy like Shedeur Sanders. Shedeur Sanders is a guy who can be dual threat, but Shedeur Sanders is mostly a pocket passer quarterback
Mm-hmm.
or a
Shadur has all the
mobile.
tools.
Yeah,
He's got the tools for the modern quarterback, whereas
right.
Drew's more of like an older quarterback, but he's still mobile too. Like people don't give him enough credit for his mobility.
Right. Yeah, he definitely is more the mobile type, just not as mobile as a Shedeur Sanders. But yeah, I think after looking at it, I think Sanders, Beck, Drew, and Ward are probably your legitimate top four quarterbacks in whatever order you want to do it going into next year.
Yeah, I totally agree. So we'll wait and see what happens there. But the next year's going to be a really interesting draft. Oh, the other name, number 16 on this list of potential number one picks, Abdul Carter.
Yeah, not surprised by. Well, I am surprised that he is amongst the potential betting odds guys for first overall pick, but I'm not surprised at all that he is going to be in the conversation for a first round guy. There's just too much raw talent there, and I think moving to edge rusher, he's going to flourish this upcoming season, and it's going to be just like Job Robinson, in my opinion. And I think between him and Nittany Dennis Sutton, Penn State's going to be in a really, really good spot at defensive end. But I guess just I know they're not on that article we posted with the odds, but just a couple other guys for next year's draft. Another potential first round pick is Kevin Winston.
Oh yeah,
he's gonna, as long as he has a good season and tests well, he'll probably go first round. He's one of the best safeties in the country. Tyler Warren is going to be a day 2 draft pick probably.
The running backs,
yeah. Nick Singleton and Katron Allen are probably going to be mid day 2 to early day 3 draft picks. We talked about Drew. Jalen Reed, another safety, will be a draft pick. Sal Wormley will be interesting. And then I don't know if I mentioned him. Nittany Dennis Sutton, obviously. I think has the size, the athleticism to go first round, but he needs to produce at a high level this year, I think, to solidify that first round type talent.
Yeah, I'm intrigued to see kind of where teams see Zane Durant.
Yeah.
I feel like he's like just a really talented defensive tackle. And I know he hasn't hit that full-on stride yet, but I think there's like a slight shot you could see him as maybe not first rounder, obviously, but I could see him as a draft pick.
I do wonder how much the size hurts.
That's going to play a factor.
Because 6'1", 288 is not a big defensive tackle, especially at the NFL level.
That's true.
It's not even a big defense tackle. I mean, that's a rather small FBS defense tackle in general.
True.
But the athleticism is there, and he's played now in 26 of 26 potential games over his first 2 seasons with the program. He's made 11 starts. He produced this year as a starter, 17 tackles, 5.5 tackles for loss, 2 sacks. He has the talent. He produces like he has. I mean, defensive tackles rarely put up quote unquote sexy numbers. But I mean, when you look at him on film, you look at the stats he does put up. Zane Durant is a really good defensive tackle. But yeah, I'm going to be intrigued to see what his NFL draft prospects are like.
Now, someone with a similar build, but never was able to. I mean, he didn't produce at this level, but Aaron Donald.
Yeah.
Obviously, a completely different player, a little more speed, quicker hands, but the same size. So I mean, it's possible to do it, I should say.
Yeah, and I mean, other potential guys who will be draft eligible next year. Just going through this list, Sal Wormley, I mentioned, Smith Filbert, Amin Vanover, J.B. Nelson, Jalen Kimber, Keziah Izzard, Julian Fleming, Zariah Fisher will be also Well, I think I combined Kazai, Izzard, and Zariah Fisher at one point. But both those guys will be there. Devon Ellis will be eligible. Hakeem Beeman will be eligible. So quite a bit of guys will be eligible for next year's draft.
Yeah, going to be interesting to see where guys land, what happens. But we got to wait for the season first.
Yeah.
Before we sign off, any recruiting tidbits? I think we have a little hint at what the whiteout might be. In terms of which game?
Yeah, I think there's a good chance that whiteout ends up potentially being that UCLA game.
October 5th.
October 5th. Let me look at the
it's a hell of a way to come
schedule.
To Penn State for your first Big Ten
and
game.
This was a game that we've been talking about for a while, and I haven't received confirmation, but I did talk to somebody in the know, and they said to watch out for that October 5th game, and that does make absolute sense. You imagine, no offense to UCLA, it is out of all the home games the third, like the fourth best home game, maybe. Ohio State, Washington take the cake at the top two. Maryland is okay. So, I mean, it's Maryland, UCLA for that third and fourth spot. Big noon kickoff is absolutely going to be that Ohio State game, I think, on November 2nd, which gets the stripe out.
Shocked.
Washington, we'll see what happens there. So I think it's Washington, UCLA, but I've been told to watch out for that UCLA game on October 5th.
It makes sense, too, because the Washington, Ohio State, and Maryland are all in November. Maryland's way too late in November, I feel like. And you might be able to sneak the Ohio State one, maybe, because it's November 2nd, but it's probably pushing it, and I think the safe option would just be October, UCLA, because you're not going to do Illinois.
Yeah, and if you really want a night game in November, you could. I think Ohio State's almost penciled in for big noon kickoff, just because Penn State, Ohio State. Theoretically, we should be talking about heading into that game a top 10 Penn State team with one loss at most to maybe USC taking on, or potentially at the time, the number one team in the country in Ohio State.
Yeah. 6-1 or 7-0, and then if you look at Ohio State's schedule, there should also probably Oregon's right there actually. That's going to be interesting.
And then if you really want a night game, quote unquote, you could do a 3:30 kickoff for November 9th against Washington.
Night game, quote unquote.
Yeah. So I think UCLA checks a lot of the boxes of what is probably going to be that whiteout game, and I guess that'll be on CBS if it does.
Yeah. Yep. But that's all we really got right now. I don't think there's anything going on recruiting wise. I did want to give a shout out to Yerbe. They are partnered. They are an energy drink partnered with Happy Valley United. It's all plant-based energy drinks, so none of that other crap they throw in Red Bull and Monster and all that stuff. It's all plant-based, zero sugar. I think it's actually 0 calories too, if I read that correct.
Yes.
So yeah, it's like one of the healthier ones out there. I know they're at Target. Snappies, where else? They're expanding to more markets soon, we were told, but check it out. They have the Happy Valley United cans. You got the let me see if I can pull this up real quick actually. It's got the little logo for Happy Valley United and all that's good stuff. And every time you buy them, they also support part of that money that you paid for them is going to support Penn State's NIL efforts, and we know how important that is right now. It's a pretty cool little can. Hashtag we are on it. And it's on top of it all, it's actually pretty damn good. I don't know if you saw the other day, like Franklin had a video, or Happy Valley United had a video with Franklin taste testing it. He gave a rookie score to start as a 9 out of 10, but he fixed it. He said 9.7, so it's not a rookie score anymore.
Yeah.
But it is very good. I've had a couple different flavors. I had cherry limeade, I think it was the other day. Cherry something. Phenomenal. Same as like any other energy drink. It gives you a nice little boost. And it's, if you don't like drinking coffee, it's got a pretty good flavor to it too. So before we finish up here, let's predict the theme games for the 2024 season, since I feel like we got a little intel on this one.
Yeah, so let's just kind of go through. We've been able to talk some people who are somewhat in the know about this. None of this is concrete, but we're going to be predicting the themes for Penn State's 2024 home games. So, I mean, we got obviously the helmet stripe game, fawn, whiteout, homecoming, stripe out, whiteout. I think I said twice now. Military Appreciation Day, Senior Day. So I think that's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 themes for 7 home games.
Let's pop this up real quick.
So I think we can start at the top here. So Bowling Green. Bowling Green and Kent State. So I think they have 7 home games this year, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Yep.
I think they had 6 themes last year. So there's a theme here that one game may be themeless. But Bowling Green and Kent State, one of these I think is going to obviously be the Thon game. That's easy.
I think you do that the 21st just because the home opener, you don't really need a theme because you're going to get a bunch of people regardless.
It's the home opener, right. The next one I think is interesting. Illinois homecoming. Usually homecoming also is the Generations of Greatness game. Now, if they want to do it, they could do fawn on the Bowling Green game, and then Kent State could be Generations of Greatness. Homecoming could just be Illinois, but usually they do Generations of Greatness with the homecoming. And it's kind of early, but I think October 28th against Illinois fits for homecoming.
I like that.
Just because it gets busy the remaining 4 games of the year. Because obviously, jumping ahead in the future, November 30th, Maryland is Senior Day, so that's easy. Which leaves you with the whiteout, the stripe out, and the helmet stripe game.
1, 2, 3.
For UCLA, Ohio State, Washington. Considering what we've seen historically out of Penn State in the Big Ten, plus what we've been able to find out about people regarding the schedule, as we said before, there's been chatter even about that August 31st game potentially being moved to Thursday, August 28th. Now, for what it's worth, we haven't heard a lot of chatter on that since January, maybe.
Yeah, it's been a little quiet.
It's been a while.
I was told we will find out the time and date of the game officially the weekend before or weekend of Memorial Day. So that's a little tidbit.
Yeah. Now, for what it's worth, Penn State and Purdue was moved up to a Thursday in February, but we'll find out, like you said, probably around Memorial Day. But whiteout, stripe out, and helmet stripe game for UCLA, Ohio State, and Washington. And then, Ohio State and Washington being in the November area. Penn State, I don't know the last time Penn State hosted a true night game in November, which it's obviously been a while. So I don't think the whiteout is going to be Ohio State or Washington. And that would also go with what we've heard about the whiteout potentially being that UCLA game, which would make sense. It's October. It's a new opponent. It's not, the biggest opponent on the schedule. That's Ohio State. But, I mean, they hosted – the last few whiteouts have been Minnesota, Auburn, which is a big one, and Iowa. Iowa wasn't the biggest game on the schedule last year. It was Michigan. But Iowa was early in the season. It was be able to be a night game against a good opponent, but not an opponent that Fox is going to, absolutely want on big noon kickoff. So we're going to go with UCLA being that whiteout game.
That's fair.
And that takes us to Ohio State and Washington. Ohio State, I think, makes sense for the stripe out game. Big noon kickoff, if I had to guess. And then Washington, I think, is setting up to be a 3:30 kickoff as a helmet stripe / military appreciation game.
It's a nice night, middle of the day game.
Yeah. And it would work out well. West Coast team. So it's a noon kickoff for the West Coast. A noon kickoff for the West Coast. But on the East Coast, it's 3:30. By the time you're in the second half, that's going to be a nice, cool evening in November in State College. Should be still decent weather at the time, too. And that should be a cool scene. Helmet stripe game, military appreciation combination there for Washington. I think I think Ohio State being a noon kickoff is pretty locked in as well.
Yeah, especially if they're going to do favors for the West Coast teams, like UCLA being whiteout, being a night game makes a lot of sense for West Coast viewership at least. Washington 3:30 makes a lot of sense. West Coast viewership, blah blah blah. So if they end up doing that, that makes a lot of sense. But yeah, that's your 2024 themes though for projected 2024 themes for each home game this year. But
we'll have to come. I'm just saying we're gonna have to come back in July once they announce all these themes and figure out how right or wrong I was.
Yeah,
so we'll see.
Well, worst comes to worst, we delete the video. But yeah, for me and Dylan, that's another episode of the Penn State 365 podcast. Signing off.